From the guys who brought you Fight Night picks, and for a short time, hitting above the Mendoza line, comes the Allen Brothers' next project. Let's tear the cover off and join in 15-minute card breaks.
Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt.
Oh boy, and we are back, and I can't wait for it. 9 fights on the docket today. UFC Vegas 36, as always, one half of your host, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. It's down below me. With me, as always, to my left, to your right, Matt Allen on their respective socials at Matt Allen FNP. The Goramus is hanging out over in the comments section. Bully Disciple, Ignorant MMA, Corey McGregor, MPTV, all sorts of guys and gals over there in the comments section. Let us know what is up. And the question there from Purple Rain 2, why haven't the betting articles been going up? Why haven't the parlays been there? Joshua Hart's taking a little bit of a break. That's all it is. But we are absolutely looking forward to today's fight card. It's early. Of course, the fans over in Europe are excited about that. Not as excited as you would be if the card actually was taking place in Europe. But you have a pretty good consolation prize with Darren Till taking on Derek Brunson in the main event. Great co-main event, Tom Aspinall taking on Sergey Spivak. He's just a good guy coming in on short notice. That's a tough fight.
It is. It really is. And I'm so excited for today's main event. It's been a while since I've been this excited. Yes, last weekend we had Giga Chikadze and some Barboza. That was a great fight. But that didn't really have a title eliminator type feel to it. I really do feel like the winner of this fight, if not fighting for a title next, they're definitely in a title eliminator fight. So this is kind of like the co-main event to a title shot. I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. Derek Brunson's been on an absolute tear as of late, and Darren Till, you always know, is super tricky on the feet. I think we're in for a great fight.
It should be a great fight indeed. Let's throw it on over to our fight of the night screen because, hey, luckily the 2 picks that we had at the start of the week will still be competing on this card. Alex Morono taking on David Zavada. What a great fight there, Matt. I mean, for Zavada, he's an all-action type of guy. Morono taking this fight on short notice. He, too, an all-action type of fighter. Somebody hit us up in the super chat. I'll get back to it. I'm going to turn the lights up a little bit. It's Corey McGregor saying I won last week and mentioned I would throw you some money if I won. I used most of your guys' picks, but went with Giga. Keep up the solid work. Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you so much, Corey. Brandon Gerber, Undia, having a good time. Matt, what can you tell us about this one as I turn up the brightness?
So like you mentioned, this is a short notice fight for Alex Morono, but this is not the first time he's been in this position. It feels like every Alex Morono fight, you almost have to get ready for it as a prediction channel on short notice. It's like, oh, we filmed the videos on Sunday, but the Alex Morono fight got announced on Wednesday and he fights on Saturday now. He always puts on a great account of himself, and he's just going to be looking to build after that great win over Cowboy Cerrone his last time out. David Zavada, like you meant, is an absolute monster, especially when it comes to grappling. I don't see how this fight can't deliver.
Yeah, it should be a great one, and we'll flip it on over to our second pick on this one. Julian Erosa, Charles Jourdain, just so happened to be in Belleuil, Quebec, Canada this week. I drove through a couple times, so obviously the people are excited in Quebec for this fight. But Matt, for Julian Erosa, this guy gives and takes a lot of damage, and that is really, really tricky when you're taking on a guy like Charles Jourdain that has the staying power that he has in a lot of his fights. But likewise, Charles Jourdain can kind of struggle with some of the pressure, and he does take moments and minutes off during some of his fights. That could really pay dividends for Julian Erosa, a guy that if he can weather the storm, you know Erosa's going to be there.
Stylistically, this is such a fun fight because both guys' strengths play into the other one's weakness. When you look at Julian Erosa, we talk about this. I remember we talked about Greg Hardy a lot, how he almost had to get past these certain like levels as an MMA fighter since he was so new. It was like, okay, you finally got past the leg kicker. Julian Erosa is that guy who just has great cardio. He's going to be there to get hit, but if he makes it to the third round, he's constantly going to be a threat to finish you. And that's something every MMA fighter kind of has to get over at some point throughout their career. It's unfortunate we won't see the other half of the fight of the night that Jourdain had with Marcelo Rojo because his fight got canceled, but I do think this could be a phenomenal fight between Jourdain and Erosa.
Yeah, man, Marcelo Rojo, that would have been a great fight. Now, the brightness, not too bad. You can actually see us a little bit here, but Matt, this is set to be a great one. Everybody that's tuned in so far, we certainly appreciate it. Corey McGregor that already hit us up in the super chat, you are appreciated. If you want to support the channel further, you can check out some of the merch. I have one of these baseball jerseys left in the cubby hole in the corner. If you want to go to fightnightpicks.com, you can find that at the shop. What else do we have? We got a hat. We got the Under Armour Fight Night Picks hat with the maple leaf on the back, supporting that Canadian pride. And if you really can't get enough of us, we just had a video drop. And Matt, this is honestly one of the more fun videos we've done. It's a whole Canadian thing. We did a CFL hobby break or hobby box break over on our second channel. 15-minute card breaks over in the comments section, Matt. Manny Ramses is saying pop and popcorn fight, fellas. There's a lot of them. Honestly, like before we even get too far into the show, I have a weird feeling this is going to be one of those like 5-4, 4-5 weeks that you just kind of kick yourself for some of these picks.
We're not going into this with that kind of energy, Craig. There's going 9-0, 8-1. I'm feeling the predictions. I really am.
There's some really, really sneaky fights on this card, but overall, like you said, pop and popcorn. It's one that I'm really looking forward to. Like all of these fights on here, even some of the ones that might get slept on. Molly McCann, Yeon Kim. We're going to learn a lot about those two fighters and the placement in that division moving forward. So, if you're new to Fight Night Picks Kicks, hey, thanks for joining us. You should subscribe. You should toss a like. But what we always do, we go bottom to top and then back down again. So if you happen to tune in late, you get an opportunity to get those picks once more. So Matt, we'll start at the bottom. And our now first fight, other than we were supposed to get Jonathan Martinez and Marcelo Rojo.
I just need a minute, Craig. I'm sorry.
Well, now we get Dalcha, Lungiambula, and Marc-Andre Barriault. But Matt, we talked about it at the start of the week. Jonathan Martinez missed weight against Frankie Saenz. Looked good in the fight, but we were worried about it coming into this week, and then he misses weight.
Jonathan Martinez looked really good at featherweight, right, Craig? That wasn't one of those weird, like, Mandela effect moments that I just remember and no one else does. Jonathan Martinez had a fight at featherweight against a good featherweight. Okay, not really, I guess Almeida's kind of small too, but you get it. He had a great performance at the featherweight division, a division where physically he fits into great, but he still is committing to making this stupid weight cut down to 135. It makes no sense to me. It reminds me a lot of Charles Oliveira when he couldn't make weight at 145 at all, but every time he'd have a great win at 155, they'd be like, hey, Charles, who do you want next? And he'd be like, I don't want a top contender. I want to fight at featherweight. It's just a bad idea at a certain point. And hey, Jonathan Martinez, first of all, his health is paramount. I hope he's doing a lot better today because, listen, that fight got canceled because of a medical issue due to him cutting weight. So hopefully everything is good in the Martinez camp. But just move up to featherweight. You've shown that you can fight there and compete there at a high level. Why not just make that your new weight class? That'll be all I have to say about that fight.
Well, with new weight classes, for Dalcha Lungiambula, former champion with EFC over in South Africa. For Lungiambula, I mean, this is a guy, former Congolese national judo fighter from 2007 to 2009. You know that he has that in his back pockets, but normally what he uses is striking. He strikes to clinch. He powers his way into the exchanges, and it usually works out quite well. I mean, you look at it right now. 11-2 the total record. His only loss in the UFC to Magomed Ankalaev. That this isn't a crazy thing to say. I keep thinking, oh, that's kind of crazy, but for Magomed Ankalaev to one day maybe possibly challenge for a title, I don't think it's that crazy. Some people think he's a future champ, but for Lungiambula, this is a guy that had never competed at middleweight until his last fight. Now, did he give Maluco Perez the third round? Maybe he did, and he didn't look great in that one. So I could understand very well if you like a guy like Marc-Andre Barriault, well, what's the blueprint? Majority of his fights, not just the Adam Hunter fight from our Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada with TKO, where he withstood a storm and then he kind of put on his own pressure. The Oscar Piata fight, it was pretty well Barriault. In some of his other fights, the Jocko fight, he comes back, he kind of rallies. But in his last fight against the Zaitsar, he does exactly that. He loses the first round handily, he wins the second round, and then ultimately in the third round, he gets the finish. So if you like Marc-Andre Barriault, Green King 220 is saying Barriault should be able to outlast Dalcha champ. But when you look at this one, yeah, it's a tricky one because Lungiambula has the wrestling in his back pocket, or at least the grappling with the judo background. He has that power striking. Can Barriault withstand the first round? That's what we're going to find out.
If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? And I've thought about this fight a lot. I've really flipped back and forth. But we kind of know Marc-Andre Barriault wins these kinds of fights. He goes in there, you think he's going to get hit. He does get touched up a little bit in the first round, and then he outlasts his opponent in the second and third round. We've kind of seen this matchup too many times before for me to go against Barriault all of a sudden. This is almost the type of matchup that he was built for. He does strike his way into the clinch in an effective way. And the thing about Dalcha, it's weird. He's a good wrestler, he's a good grappler, but it's almost like he's a good grappler at medium range. When he's chest to chest with guys, he can get out wrestled just in a traditional sense with like single legs and double legs, but when he does get an underhook, when he is using some of that judo, because it's not really judo in a traditional sense, he's not someone like Ronda Rousey who's going through a bunch of head and arm throws. He just uses his hips in a really effective way, and I look at his judo background more as a defensive wrestling style than anything offensive he's going to throw at Barriault. With all that being said, I still think he's going to be on the defensive a lot. I think he's going to be held up against the cage, and I just think Barriault is going to make this fight boring early on, and by the third round, we've seen Dalcha tire. I don't think Marcus Perez is that great of a fighter at the UFC level, and if he was able to at least make it interesting in the third round, I think Barriault will be the much fresher fighter.
For you to say that Lungiambula's judo is defensive is the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time.
He uses his hips in a defensive way. Most guys who have really good judo have really good hips. They use it to toss their opponent. What Dalcha does is he has great hips when guys try to shoot on him. He uses his hips like a wall to meet guys and then dig his underhooks. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say.
Great takedowns that we've seen from Dalcha Lungiambula in the UFC, especially in that Perez fight, especially early in that fight. But again, late, it got a little worrisome. If we have a look at the odds for this fight, Dalcha is the underdog. He opened a plus 105. He's a plus 142. Marc-Andre Barriault opened a minus 125. He's a minus 168. Over with the Fight Night Picks fans. 58% with Dalcha Lungiambula to 42% with Barriault. That's good for 151 total votes for Lungiambula, 106 for Barriault. And yeah, I agree with you. This has been a really tricky one going back and forth. So if you've got Barriault, you think he's going to outlast in this one?
I really do. Again, Christophe Jocko had a hard time hitting Barriault clean, and Christophe Jocko is a really high-level striker. I know he doesn't have crazy power, and when you look at his record, there's not a lot of TKOs, but Christophe Jocko, just as a technician, is a really solid stand-up fighter, and he did have a hard time at least getting some of the timing on Barriault, because Barriault does crash forward a lot. I do think Dalcha's going to have a hard time landing those power shots, and if it does become one of those grueling fights, it's going to be Barriault's to lose.
Fight to go the distance is plus 110. I'm liking that for either guy, and I know it might sound crazy. Lungiambula is definitely a finisher. Barriault can be, but again, I consider him more of a grinder. The Piata fight, he gets the finish. The Zaitsar, he gets the finish. He is a great fighter. It is a really tricky one. I had this as a 50-50 at the start of the week. I'll go with Barriault here just because, I do think he's going to be able to outlast. When I really think of those fights and I think critically, how can I see a path? If I see it by decision, if I see a guy like Barriault where there is a pattern and he's able to start to land with a lot of pressure, if he can get the second, if he can get the third, I've got Barriault in this one. But yeah, it is a really tricky fight. If you can make a good case over there in the comments section, please do so, because this is a tough fight and Barriault has gained most of the week. Our second fight, Matt, it's Quebec and then Quebec. We have Charles Jourdain, Jourdain. He's taking on Julian Erosa. If you're from the Belleuil region, if you're from the Brossard region, if you're from Saint-Hyacinthe, we want to hear from you.
We do.
We want to get that South Shore Quebec fan support here in the comments section. And hell, if you want to see Fight Night Picks in French, you let us know. But Matt, Charles Jourdain taking on Julian Erosa. I'm going to bring it up and talk about the odds for this one because at the start of the week, they were relatively close, and now we have a look at them. Julian Erosa open a plus 140, he's a plus 156. Jourdain open a minus 170, he's minus 187 right now. For Charles Jourdain, and Joe over there in the comments section saying really high on Charles, the one thing I worry about is he had that giant come out performance where he was over in South Korea. It happened to be Busan. which is where Doo-Ho Choi is from, in Busan, and he beats him in emphatic fashion. And it's like, wow, strap a rocket ship to this guy's back, because Charles Jourdain is that next huge talent that we're going to have out of Canada. The next, I don't know, GSP, Tanner Boser, Akeem Dawodu, somebody that can really make their mark in the recent era. And then he comes out kind of flat in some of his fights, like when he took on, Name your fighter, Joshua Culibao. The Rojo fight made it close until he ends up getting the finish. So I do worry a little bit about Charles Jourdain, especially against a guy like Juicy J, who's always in your face, who won't let you take moments off. Had Jourdain at the start of the week, definitely have Jourdain in this fight, but there are question mark kicks that arise when you look at his style.
This is my problem with Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa's pressure is going to make Charles Jourdain a really active fighter. So just by way of him moving forward, it's going to force Jourdain to throw shots at him, because Jourdain is not just going to be on his bike constantly throughout the fight. If you meet him with pressure, he's going to start throwing in combinations. So I actually think he's going to almost speed up the process, because Jourdain is a guy who takes a little bit of time to ease into the fight. Again, kind of like the last fight. We've seen Barriault fight power punchers, make them tired, and then win a decision. We've seen that throughout his entire career. I've seen Julian Erosa get pieced up a lot early on in fights. And again, another rule of thumb is if you get beat by knockout by Teruto Ishihara, then I think Charles Jourdain can do the exact same thing. Now, I understand Ishihara had a little run with a lot of pop at 145, but I really do think Charles Jourdain is a much better fighter than Teruto Ishihara, and I think he's a much better striker than Julian Erosa. I know Sean Woodson also was a better striker than Julian Erosa, and it didn't really matter in that fight, but the difference is that Sean Woodson doesn't have great cardio. Charles Jourdain has great cardio and really good output to go along with that cardio. I like Jourdain in this fight, and I honestly like him to win by stoppage.
Joe making a good point here, saying Erosa just got knocked out 2 months and a week ago in the first round against Sungwoo Choi, who is a really good striker. So for me, I've got Eric Jourdain in this fight. Matt, the votes at Fight Night Picks on Instagram. You got to get out there early. Obviously, this is a weird show. Viewership's going to be strange because we're 4 hours earlier than we normally are, and I put the votes or the pictures that you can vote on for the polls out last night. But yeah, you can always find them at Fight Night Picks. So with this one, in terms of the vote share, 78% Jourdain, 22% going with Erosa. It's 416 total votes for Jourdain to 115 for Erosa. Yeah, I've got Charles Jourdain in this fight. That's 2 Canadians in 2 fights. That's weird for us.
That really is.
That doesn't happen very often. It's not a national pride thing. It's a critical thinking thing, I guess.
The Canadian MMA scene's been down pretty bad lately, so hopefully we're getting a bit of a resurgence right now.
Spencer Peterson saying, "What's up, fellas? I have Till tonight." And MPTV saying Erosa doesn't care about his chin. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And Brett Z's making fun of us, but Brett Z, moi je parle en français, and we're going to call him the way that they call him where he is at home. Matt, our next fight, Jack Shore taking on Liudvik Sholinian. And Matt, this is such an interesting fight because both of these guys are very good wrestlers, very good grapplers. Jack Shore, a back taker. Liudvik does not stop and will chain takedowns together like they're going out of style. The other thing that he does, he tends to eat a lot of punishment. You saw that in his fight against Ricky Tercios, but we've seen that in multiple other fights. The other thing for Liudvik, and I saw somebody kind of peppered in there in the comments section this week, was, yeah, he took on a good level of competition, but some of his wins were over guys that were, pro debut or 1-1, 0-2. But if you do look at the other names, I mean, the Vince Cacheros of the world, and that was not on The Ultimate Fighter. That was before even Cachero ended up in the UFC. And Liudvik's got to win there. So over there in the comments section, Kiko is saying, I got Sholinian by decision. Ravioli. Liudvik is a punching bag. It really is a tricky fight, especially for Jack Shore, because it was supposed to be Saidner Magomedov and so on and so forth. There were a couple of different changes of opponent. Now this is who he gets. I think this is one of those Grappler's Paradise type of fights. I love the booking, and good for Liudvik because he seemed like that kind of feel-good breakout story that was supposed to be from the season of The Ultimate Fighter. So what's your take on this one?
I think Sholinian can be really good, but again, this is one of those too much too soon scenarios. Again, Parker Preston might be a good fighter.
Who?
Or Preston
Parsons?
Preston Parsons. There we go, not Parker Parsons.
Fought Daniel Rodriguez.
Preston Parsons might be a really good fighter one day. but you don't give him Daniel Rodriguez in his first fight. This is very similar to that. Like, Jack Shore should be fighting those borderline top 15 guys right now, and I know Sholinian is a phenomenal grappler. Like you said, he can chain his takedown attempts in a really effective way, and he's really good at wrestling from not only the clinch up against the cage, but in open space too. The issue is that he does leave space when he gets takedowns. It's not an immediate takedown into a dominant position, and that's going to force scrambles. And really, I doubt many people at this division are better at scrambling and just overall grappling than Jack Shore, and that's why I just think stylistically, this is a really hard fight for Sholinian to get in his UFC debut.
Dave Baker, friend of the show, who's friend of the family, is Daniel Rodriguez in a roundabout way, but really appreciate the super chat, the shout out to D-Rod. He looked great against Kevin Lee, especially in the second and third rounds. Matt, the odds for this one, Shore is a really big favorite. Open to minus 285. Wish I got him there. He's a minus 610 right now over on that site. And for Sholinian, plus 433. Over at Fight Night Picks on the Instagrams, it's 89% Shore to 11% Sholinian. If he can keep it busy, if he can keep it like pitter-patter, maybe there's an opportunity for Sholinian in this fight. But Matt, Jack Shore, I know in his last fight, if you want to play MMA math, Brian Kelleher knocked out Hunter Azure. Hunter Azure had a really competitive fight against Jack Shore, but you got to consider the way that they fought. And listen, Hunter Azure is a great wrestler, so you learned a lot about both guys in that one. And same can be said, if Sholinian can kind of capitalize on Shore, the blueprint's right there. I like Jack Shore in this fight because he is such a talented grappler, as Green King 220 is saying. But yeah, I can't go with Sholinian in this fight. I think he's got a good cap.
It's a hard debut.
Yeah, this is a really hard debut. Matt, we'll move on to our next fight. Molly McCann taking on Yeon Kim. Of course, you had Jack Shore from Wales, Molly McCann from the Liverpool area. And Matt, in this fight, it really is tricky because for Yeon Kim, in between fights, we've seen different gains, different leaps. We saw where she hasn't looked so good in some fights. She beats Nadia Kassem, finishes her, and that was a huge marquee win. She comes out and they match her up with Alexa Grasso. And people think very highly of Alexa Grasso. The only trouble was the output was just a little bit less, and she looked to counter-strike and wait just a little bit too much, and that's how she lost that fight. Lost every round, but we did see gains in Yeon Kim's game. I just look at this one. I want to hear from the fans over there in the comments section, because now we're up past 300 viewers, Matt. 63 likes. You got to get up there. I want to see more than 300 likes on this video like we did a few weeks ago. There's ghost pepper chips in the cupboard. I'll go back and get them if you want to see some punishment. But Matt, Yeon Kim, we've seen these gains. She has a 10-inch reach advantage in this one. She's so much bigger. That's where it gets really tricky. I mean, Meatball, is she going to wrestle? Is she going to strike? Because both of these women have extensive backgrounds in the amateur scene as far as where their martial arts are concerned. So what do you see in this one?
It's weird that I think about Conor McGregor after the second Dustin Poirier fight where he's like the highest highs and the lowest lows. That's what I think about when I think about Yeon Kim's career. Because against Nadia Kassem, there's that weird like no glove touch, like the fake one into the hit. And then she beats the brakes off her. But here's the thing. Nadia Kassem's an awful UFC fighter. She wasn't great at the UFC level. She was very, very bad, some might even say. And then they did match her up with Alexa Grasso, which is really odd because at least 125 pounds, it feels like Alexa Grasso is a real player in that weight division. So it was kind of surprising that, oh, you beat Kassem, now you get Alexa Grasso. To me, that felt like a big step up in competition. And it feels like there should have been like a, oh, you fight Meatball Molly McCann, then you might fight a Montana De La Rosa, then you'll get up to one of those marquee names. It's been weird kind of how they matchmake Yeon Kim throughout her UFC career. This is the thing about Molly McCann. She's just on the outside of being a quality win for most of these women in this division. I think she can beat most entry-level fighters in the UFC, but I do feel like Molly McCann is always going to struggle against those more proven and just more, I guess, consistent fighters in these divisions. I'm going to pick Molly McCann because, oddly enough, she does have pretty good takedown defense, or takedown offense, and I do think she'll be able to take down Yeon Kim. I know that sounds weird, but her from the open guard has pretty good control of her opponents on the mat. I know it hasn't always worked out. Julian Robertson proved that, but I do think Molly McCann is the more complete fighter, even though when you look at both fighters' backgrounds, Yeon Kim's would suggest that she's the much more complete fighter of the two.
Yeah, I mean, it really is tricky. B. Reed saying McCann looked like she never fought before in her last fight against Santos, but I think she's going to beat Kim. I mean, that was our poster moment in a negative light because we took Molly McCann like handily over Tyler Santos. And she looked absolutely terrible in that fight. She really did. I mean, it does, listen, credit where it's due. Santos looked great in that one. If you look at the odds for this one, almost pick 'em. McCann open to plus 165. She's minus 115. Yeon Kim open to minus 190. She's minus 105 right now. So if you can make a really strong case, go for it. Elizabeth Morris is saying this fight stinks. Move on, Matt. Hey, man.
Sorry.
Easy. We don't match make. We don't put the cards together. 65% at Fight Night Picks have McCann. 35% of Yeon Kim. The Drunk Investor, I'm not going to show it because you cursed. You can't make money when there's cursing over there. Saying that screw this fight. It's going to ruin parlays.
Probably.
Why would you bet on it?
Yeah.
I've got Molly McCann slightly, but if Yeon Kim wins, I'm not going to be surprised at all. Luis Rodriguez, $1.99 in the super chat,
Thank you, Luis.
saying thank you for the great work. But yeah, it really is a tricky one. I mean, Yeon Kim's not a huge underdog, and this fight does kind of stink if you want to bet on it, but don't bet on it. Don't be stupid.
No, you shouldn't.
Luigi Vendramini is going to be
great.
taking on Paddy Pimblett. Matt, we talk about percentages, odds, this and that over at Fight Night Picks. 79% have Pimblett to the 21% that have Vendramini. The odds for this one, Pimblett's I would say, a slight favorite. He's not that big. I mean, he opened to minus 184. He's a minus 156 right now. For Vendramini, open to plus 154. He's a plus 131 right now. I absolutely love this fight. I want to hear from everybody in the comments section on this one because style for style, this should be a great one. And this was just on the fringes of our fight of the night.
Oh, yeah.
I think, if it comes to the grappling, both guys can have their successes. If it goes to the striking, maybe Vendramini's a little bit better, but Pimblett's continue to progress with his striking. That's what makes this one such a great fight.
I think Paddy Pimblett learned a lot in that Sorenbach fight. And Bellator, I don't know why they split up the possible future rematch that could have been in that Cage Warriors main event, because that would be a great fight today. That was 2017, and both those fighters, 18. Both those fighters have progressed a lot since just then, and Paddy Pimblett's interesting. Everybody talks about the grappling, but his striking has made steady improvements throughout his career. He went from being just a grappler to now I can strike my way into the clinch. I'm a little bit more dynamic with my punches and my kicks. I do still think Vendramini is the better striker in this fight. I do think he'll have a lot more success, and he can throw in volume too. We even saw him when he was crashing forward against Eliseo Zaleski of Santos have a little bit of success. He is a little bit wild sometimes with his technique when he does crash forward, but when he is sort of in that classic Thai stance, he puts very nice low kicks. He's a really effective striker. I don't think that's going to matter for him that much, though, because I really do think that this fight's primarily going to be contested on the mat. Vendramini does go for quite a few takedowns, and I think Paddy Pimblett's going to play this in one of those. Fight Metric's not going to like this, but Paddy Pimblett's going to defend takedowns by, pulling guard, basically. I think he's going to welcome a lot of those grappling exchanges with Vendramini, and I do think Paddy Pimblett is the superior grappler in this matchup, and that's why I think he's going to be able to win this fight.
Rebecca Middleditch, always out there in the comments section saying excited for this one either way. There's a lot of Paddy Pimblett hype out there, and I want to go in on a comment that's over there from Poten saying anytime the UFC tries to hype a fighter, it blows up in their face. This guy's been hyped forever with Cage Warriors. I just want to say one thing really quick. I saw somebody out there in the comments section this week said, Paddy Pimblett basically taking a pay cut to go to the UFC. You just have your manager to blame, who's also the guy that runs Cage Warriors. So that's a really weird thing to hear, and I think that's one of the dumbest things you could say. Don't go over if you don't want to, if it's all about the money, but clearly it isn't for Paddy Pimblett. This is to really prove to people that he can hang, he can be a champ in the UFC. This is his time. Obviously, the featherweight champ over with Cage Warriors. He's fought some names that you might know and recognize. Julian Erosa, that's on this card. He fought Joe Giannetti. Oh, wait, but Joe didn't make weight, so that fight didn't happen. He's fought recognizable names. Obviously, that big loss that you mentioned, the Soren Bach fight, that was a good one. It was a lot of fun. It was in the scrambles. With Luigi Vendramini, man, his head's got to be in it. We listened to that interview this week at the media scrum. He's like, listen, didn't feel it in my last fight. Had to learn that I got to take some time off, not train too hard, and I got to kind of figure out the mental. Seems like he's got it here. The guy is excellent at Muay Thai. He's got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. With Paddy Pimblett, he's got that Jiu-Jitsu in his back pocket. He's a multiple-time no-gi champ. He's a black belt in his own right, so that's what makes it so much fun. Pez saying, who are these pencil neck casuals? Pez, you're the one that wrote the comment, so you must have enjoyed the video enough to write it. But again, with the odds, Paddy Pimblett, the slight favorite over in the percentages at Fight Night Picks, 79% with Paddy Pimblett. I've got Luigi Vendramini in this fight. I see it as being very close. I hesitate a little bit with what I heard in that interview. It does give me a little bit of pause, but I like Vendramini with the striking. I think he can get it done. Vendramini's not the same guy that fought Fares Ziem, and I should say Paddy Pimblett's not the same fighter as Fares Ziem, because with Ziem, he's so long for the division, he can prod out there. Vendramini couldn't crash distance until his coach has basically told him, go in, Mark Montoya. Mark's got to be there from the opening bell with a good game plan, that he's got to act, and he's got to act quickly. I don't see Paddy finishing it on the feet. Now, in his last fight against David Martinez, he cracks him with a good one, ends up on the mat, submits him quickly. But he was a minus 600 favorite. Martinez wasn't very good. Decky Dalton, the last fight before that, the win to kind of get him back and going at the start of the pandemic. Decky was on a week's notice, and it was a mismatch stylistically. So I like Vendramini. I think Paddy Pimblett is a great fighter. I think this fight should deliver. I like the Brazilian in this one, though.
Paddy Pimblett's in phenomenal shape. I don't know if you've seen the pictures that came out of him, like, in COVID, and then now. Like, he looks like a completely different person. He really does. And you really can't say enough about that. First of all, good job, Paddy Pimblett. But that is the big thing. I always worried about his weight cut down to featherweight because he is such a big guy. But I do think he has the weight cut down now. You know, like, this is sort of his division.
Yeah, 155 is where it's at.
100%. And it's going to be really interesting, him moving forward, because I always felt like that was a struggle for him. It was, he is going to struggle physically with these guys. I think that now his body is at that stage. And I do think he's the better grappler in this matchup. And again, I think that's where it's going to come down to in the end. I know people like Luigi Vendramini because he's got that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I think it's different than MMA grappling, and I do think that Paddy Pimblett's the superior MMA grappler in this matchup.
Matt, I absolutely love this fight. I've got Vendramini, you've got Pimblett, and we'll move on. It should be another great one. We have Modestas Bukauskas taking on Khalil Rountree, and I'm not going to say the curse words that Khalil said, but I did say them in the upcoming episode of Early Stoppage that you can check out with myself and John Franklin. I watched the media scrum for Khalil Rountree, and he said, man, I had a guy that messaged me one time. The question was, is the most annoying question you get asked or thrown out there on Instagram, the most annoying comment, man, you lost me a ton of money. And did you watch that? Khalil was basically like, yeah, somebody sent me an Instagram message and said, you lost me $650K, and Cole laughed and said, man, screw you. But He didn't say screw you. And he laughed and laughed and laughed because it's ridiculous. If you message fighters on that, you're an idiot. For Khalil Rountree, definitely has to kind of get out of the trend of losing. He's got a bucket. He's got to get the win, break the Randall Marcos streak. He's taking on Modestas Bukauskas, a classically trained striker. Style for style, these guys match up incredibly well.
This should be a really fun fight. Bukauskas is great at striking backwards, and we know Khalil Rountree does move forward when he strikes. But that's the big problem with Rountree. Does he move forward and does he strike? Because when he does throw his punches, when he does let his hands go and his kicks go, he's a very devastating striker. The issue is that he'll just leave like minutes of pause between these big explosions of activity, and he is one of those guys. He's not like Paulo Costa, who has all these muscles, and he can throw like 15 punch combos and just keep on doing it round after round. Khalil does have to kind of explode and then recharge a little bit and explode again. I think that can beat really low-level fighters, and I think that can beat guys like Eric Anders, who are more just athletes over skill guys. But Modestas Bukauskas is a highly trained and highly skilled striker, and I think that's why he's going to win this fight. I don't like how he does just kind of run backwards when he does, when he is on the defensive. It's not a great skill to have, especially when he does fight the upper echelon guys. Like, if you do that against Jan Blachowicz, he's going to throw one more strike, follow you, and then knock you out up against the cage. It's a really nasty habit to have, but I think against a guy like Khalil Rountree Jr., you can get away with that habit. I think he's going to be the more active striker. Here's the thing. I know these are two very big strikers. I don't think this is going to be a finish, oddly enough, and I actually have sort of low hopes for how entertaining this fight can be. I think Bukauskas can win this decision, but I don't think this is going to be a fight of the year, oh my god, we'll be talking about this tomorrow type of fight.
Yeah, it's a really, really tricky one. I mean, you look at it, Rountree, great striker, southpaw. If he can get those kicks working against Bukauskas, that's going to draw him into the fight. That could be great for Khalil Rountree. So if we have a look at this one in terms of the odds, I wouldn't bet on this one. I mean, Bukauskas open a plus 130. He's a minus 163. That's pretty well stayed the same all week. Rountree open a minus 150. He's a plus 136 at Fight Night Picks. 58% Bukauskas, 42% Rountree. Like, that was the same thing. Lungiambula and Barriault. It was the same percentages. Over in the comments section, B. Reed saying, I think UFC wants Bukauskas to stick around. They need him to win a lame decision. Or did they want the guy that made it really far in the Ultimate Fighter, like on technicality? I don't know. Manny Ramses is saying Roundtree will revamp his Muay Thai. I'm wishing, but he switched gyms a bunch. Like he's at a new gym this time, so hopefully it sticks. Hopefully it works. He's back in Vegas training for this one. I would pass on it as well. I've got Bukauskas, but again, if Roundtree goes out there, draws him into a fight, and then catches him with a hook and knocks out Bukauskas, I wouldn't be surprised. Bukauskas is durable. He has bad wrestling, just straight up bad wrestling. He can pop back to his feet, but Roundtree's no special wrestler either. I've got Bukauskas, but if I woke up tomorrow and Roundtree won, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think Bukauskas is the more technical striker, and for that, I'm going to pick him to win. But, like you said, I could see this being one of those cases where the first 3 minutes of the fight, Bukauskas is landing his jab a lot, he's landing body kicks and whatnot. It looks like he's building towards a nice decision win, but he does get clipped by a big shot and maybe finish in the first round. I could see that happening, but I still have to pick Bukauskas because he's the more consistent of the two fighters. I'm not saying either guy's consistent, don't get me wrong, but I do think Bukauskas has the more staying power of the two.
All right, Matt, we move on to our next one. We have Alex Morono taking on David Zawada. Matt, what a great fight between a couple of guys who always bring it. For David Zawada, he gets punched a lot.
He does.
His face blows up a lot. He gets taken down. But he's never quite out of the fight. That's the crazy thing. Like, normally, when somebody says that, you look like, I don't know, Victor Rodriguez at 135 pounds. And for Alex Morono, you talk hot and cold. Like Khalil Roundtree, Alex Morono's hot and cold, man. Like, sometimes you beat Reese McKee, who's got a big fight coming back with Cage Warriors. And sometimes you, I don't know,
Cowboy.
You look terrible against Anthony Pettis, and then you knock out Cowboy. So where exactly is Alex Morono at? It really is tough. The Drunk Investor was having fun before, and now he's being a dingus. So Matt, when we look at this fight, style for style, I have this as a possible fight of the night. So what are you saying?
This should be a really fun fight. David Zawada, like you mentioned, he's just a fun fighter, but he is a hittable fighter as a result of that. And that's the weird thing about Alex Morono. He can come in on a day's notice, a week's notice, a full training camp, and he can make it a fun fight. And he does have good short notice cardio. It doesn't really matter when he does accept the fight. You know he's going to at least be there for 15 minutes, and 15 hard minutes of that. Go back to the Reese McKee fight. Like, Reese McKee is maybe not a great UFC caliber fighter, maybe not even a UFC caliber fighter, but he at least was able to withstand a lot of punishment in that fight, and we did see Alex Morono throw a ton of volume and look really fresh in the third round of that fight. But like you mentioned, on the flip side, he almost got wheel kick knocked out by Anthony Pettis in the third round of their fight, and that's not a great look. I think we have seen at least a better version of Alex Morono as of late, and I do feel like we're going to get one of those better versions today. I'm going to stick with the Alex Morono pick, but David Zawada could crack him with a big shot and submit him with a guillotine easy.
The best trash talk over in the comment sections from Pez, because he started off saying, who are these pencil neck casuals? And then he called us nerds.
I have bad allergies, Pez. Settle down.
Pez came around on us in like 5 minutes, so hey, thanks for sticking around, buds. Matt, but yeah, when we look at this one, Zawada, you look at it, he's what? An inch taller. He's got 3 extra inches of reach. When we have a look at the odds for this one, David Zawada is a slight underdog. He opened a plus 165. He's a plus 106 right now. If we look at Morono, open to minus 205. He's minus 128. David Zawada, the 4th biggest mover and shaker on this card at a 35% clip. And if we have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes, 69% Morono to 31% Zawada. Preston is saying you guys should open select H2 boxes. Preston, we did, but they're very expensive, so we need a lot more super chat over there if you want to help us out so we can open some more of those boxes. It was a lot of fun, but they are way too expensive. But Matt, yeah, when we're looking at the votes for this one, the fans have Morono. The money's been coming in on Zawada, although he's still the underdog. So what's the thought on this fight? Like, how do you see this one going?
I think Alex Morono is going to defend a few takedowns, overwhelm David Zawada with his volume, and probably end up winning a unanimous decision. I think it'll be a very entertaining fight. I think Zawada will have his moments. He does hit very hard when he is able to connect. He puts a lot behind his shots. But Alex Morono's got a great chin. We've seen him get cracked before in the past, and other than Chaos Williams, who has like 20 out of 10 types of power at this weight class, I think it's really hard to put him away, so I am going to stick with the Alex Morono pick. And I do expect, if he's able to win this, match him with like a Randy Brown next, like somebody close to the top 15. I'm done watching Alex Morono fight like lower outside the rankings guys. Like, he's been around for a while now, and we don't know how good he is until he does fight at least one top guy. Give Alex Morono, like, a borderline top 15 guy next, and just see what happens.
I mean, remember his fight against Max Griffin? That was fun. For David Zawada, he was supposed to take on Sergey Kandashko coming into this fight. Obviously, it did not happen. I've got Morono ever so slightly. Honestly, had it as a 50-50 at the start of the week, and before I did my tape study, I had Zawada to win, so take that for what it's worth. I'll go with Morono, but again, like I said from the start of the video, I have a bad feeling about this card. We move into our co-main event of the evening. Tom Aspinall was supposed to take on not Sergey Spivak. He was supposed to take on another Sergey in Pavlovich, a guy who shouldn't be in the rankings. Surprised he's even with the UFC. I know he lost to Overeem, and then he picked up a win over, who was it, like Marcelo Golm?
No, he knocked out Maurice Green.
Oh, Maurice Green.
How dare you?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So Matt, when we look at this one, Aspinall's supposed to take on a power striker. Now he's taking on a great grappler in a guy who, in my mind's eye, I always go, okay, Sergey Spivak, he's from Moldova, his nickname's the Polar Bear, he's probably got a Sambo background, but there's sumo in there. There's a sumo background in there, so that's cool. I love his grappling. I think it's great. Tom Aspinall's taught jiu-jitsu for the longest time. You get to see that on display in his last fight against Andrei Arlovsky. People didn't like it that he got hit by Arlovsky. I didn't love it either, especially because sometimes he just, like, sticks his hands out, puts his head back. You don't love it, but his boxing's crisp. It's fast. It's some of the neatest we've seen at heavyweight in a really long time. I love it. But Spivak's a good fighter, and man, if he wins here, I know these guys are, 13 or 14th in the rankings. It feels like a bigger fight than that.
Does it?
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I don't think Sergey Spivak's like a top guy in this division. I think Sergey Spivak's probably 20% better than the average viewer does. I just think this is a massive mismatch in the co-main event. I really do. And if you feel differently, please let me know. But I think Tom Aspinall should be fighting like Derek Lewis. He should be fighting, maybe not Cyril God because now he's in the title picture, but you get the idea. Like, I think Tom Aspinall deserves those top 7 to 3 guys in this division because we saw what he did to Arlovsky. And I know Arlovsky's completely shot at this stage of his career, but what we do know about Arlovsky is that he throws an incredibly high amount of volume, which is good in the heavyweight division, and he does move pretty well for a heavyweight. Yes, he was able to land a couple good shots on Aspinall, but it's just because he throws so many damn shots to begin with. When he's constantly throwing his arms out there, a couple of those are going to get through and clip you. I think a low-volume guy like Sergey Spivak's going to have a really hard time with Tom Aspinall. The power and the hand speed of Aspinall, I won't say it's unparalleled or unrivaled at this weight class, but it is very unique and it does set him apart, and I don't think Sergey Spivak's going to have the success grappling that he does against most other striking-oriented heavyweights out there, like Tai Tuivasa, for instance, because most guys in the heavyweight division are either really good at striking, really good at grappling, and that's pretty much it. Tom Aspinall's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu practitioner to go along with his really good boxing, so I do see this being a massive mismatch.
The odds on this one, Matt, I mean, Tom Aspinall open to -300. He's a -236 right now. Spivak moving at a 19% clip. It was a wide margin there earlier. He was a +240 at open. He's a +192 right now. And at Fight Night Picks, what is it? 88%. 88% with Aspinall, 12% with Spivak. I think it is a great fight. Excuse me. Brian saying you're definitely sleeping on Spivak. Brian, we're not sleeping on
with the
any of these
windows
guys.
open and the AC on. I don't care if I'm sleeping on him. This is a really bad fight for Sergey Spivak, and it's on a week's notice. If he had 2 months to get ready for Tom Aspinall, I think he'd have a very hard time with Aspinall. The fact that he's coming in on a week's notice means this fight's going to be even harder for him.
Yeah, I mean, I like Spivak. I think he's got a good opportunity. I'm taking Tom Aspinall in this one, Matt. 500 tuned in right now, but only 132 likes. It takes 2 seconds. If we get above 300, I will leave this show and get those ghost pepper Pocky chips, and I'll eat 5 of them. How about that? 5 of them, because I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
All right, Matt. Main event time. We have Derek Brunson taking on Darren Till. You've got the Scouser taking on, well, he's from the Carolinas. And Derek Brunson, he's been embarrassed in front of the people of the Carolinas when he took on Jacare Souza. He's also embarrassed a lot of people, including, well, Edmund Shabazian, Kevin Holland. Derek Brunson's looked great lately, and that's what makes this so much fun, because for Brunson, he's on a tidy little win streak. He took on that little snake in the grass, Elias Theodoru, and said, see you later, in front of the hometown fans in Canada. He's had a great run. He's gone back to the basics, back to his roots. He's utilized his wrestling. He knows that he has that All-American bit in his back pocket. And I think the group at Sanford MMA has really kind of tuned him up to make another run, probably a last run, near the end of his career in this division. Now for Darren Till, he's been off for a long time, collarbone issue. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, but the highest level of competition. And it kind of does him dirty because you look at the number next to his name and you go, oh, well, that's kind of weird. Like, he's rated down there, but he's a favorite in the fight. So what can you tell me about this one? Because Brian is saying full-on underdog card today. 1D ammo. Brunson going to stop Till. Brian saying Brunson's going to beat Till. The Drunken Investor. Brunson going to get raw dogged. And Dustin saying, and it's true, Till needs this win.
He really does. Now, this is what I'll say about this fight. Derek Brunson is by far the better wrestler in this matchup. I don't think anybody is going to come after me for saying that. But it's how does he use his wrestling in this fight? Darren Till has great defensive wrestling. He's got really good hips. He's a really strong fighter, especially at this weight division where he doesn't have to kill himself like he did at welterweight. But his takedown defense does kind of fall off the more tired he gets into a fight. So for me, I think this is a very simple, if Derek Brunson can get past the first 3 rounds, he should probably win this fight. He's at least a dedicated enough wrestler, I'll say, because Darren Till's fought wrestlers in the past, but none that go after at least the volume of takedowns that Derek Brunson does. The thing about Derek Brunson, though, is I don't think he can be defensively sound for that long. We saw Derek Brunson get hit by Kevin Holland, of all fighters, and get hit clean by him near the end of their fight. And if Kevin Holland in the 5th round has enough power to hurt you, then Darren Till sure as heck has enough power to hurt you all throughout the fight. The weird thing about Darren Till, and I know everybody loves his striking, and we all gloat about how great it is, it's weird that he's one of the few MMA strikers who can't switch stances, like, at all, right? That's something about Darren Till that...
Gotta reset, go southpaw.
But it's just always southpaw, always southpaw. And we all know how devastating that left hand from the southpaw stance is, but it's just if fighters constantly circle to his right, he has a really hard time landing that shot. With all that being said, I think those are holes that, like, Robert Whittaker can exploit and Israel Adesanya can exploit. I don't think Derek Brunson can exploit that hole. The thing I will say, though, and I know I'm bringing up a lot of reasons for why Derek Brunson's going to win this fight, even though my official pick is going to be Darren Till, I just want to get everything out of the way now so you guys don't come after us in the comments section. Just being like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. This thing about Derek Brunson, he's knocked out better strikers than him in the past. He knocked out Uriah Hall in the first round. He knocked out Lyoto Machida in the first round. Those are way superior strikers than Derek Brunson, but power is the great equalizer and can kind of erase all those initial flaws. I think Darren Till has a good enough chin, though, to where he can eat a couple shots from Derek Brunson at this weight class. Whittaker was able to land clean on him a few times, and Whittaker's a huge puncher in this division, and he wasn't able to hurt Darren Till. So I think Darren Till can at least absorb whatever early onslaught Derek Brunson brings. I think he'll be able to defend at least some of the early takedowns, and I do see his power on the inside. I do see him landing an elbow on the clinch. I do see him landing one of those left-hand shots at some point, and I do think he's going to knock out Derek Brunson.
Over in the, I guess the poll that we have up at the top in the comments section here on YouTube, main event winner today? Derek Brunson, 41%, Till, 59%. If we look at the odds for this one, like we said, I mean, Darren Till is the favorite. Open to -138, he's -164. Derek Brunson, open to +115, he's +138. Darren Till has moved at a 17% clip this week. At Fight Night Picks, you have a bigger sample size, 73% going with Till, 27% with Brunson. I think I had a poll out there at the start of the week in the YouTube community tab. It's about 70-30 with people going for Till. I think that Darren Till, if it goes, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, if we're there, then there's a great opportunity for him to knock out Derek Brunson. Till has great takedown defense, or he has through his UFC tenure. Who's the best wrestler he's taken on? Maybe Gastelum on paper?
Woodley. Well, Woodley got him down and choked him out.
And finished him. So those are the troubles that I have in taking him. But man, I've seen Derek Brunson on baby deer legs. It's like every fight.
Yeah.
That's the worrisome part. Plus, he's late in his career. Jake Wright saying, thank you guys for putting in all the effort into breaking down these cards each week.
Well, thank you, Jake.
Yeah, I've got Derek Brunson in this fight from the activity perspective, and I think if he's able to wrestle quick and early and test those hips of Darren Till, again, we'll see how good that takedown defense is. I'm sure you're going to have Team Calbon's best. You got Aspinall connection with his dad. You got Mike Grundy. There's a lot of great wrestlers there, just from a learning perspective and a teaching and coaching perspective. But for me, I've got Derek Brunson in this fight. I'm going to keep that pick from the start of the week, and I think it's going to be a great fight. So, Matt, we'll go all the way back down through this card. We're in disagreement on some of these ones. Like I said, I have a weird feeling for this one, but I want to hear from everybody over there in
Confidence is key, Craig. Come on.
in the comments section. Matt, Dalcha Lungiambula take on Marc-Andre Barriault. Will Duke
Thank
hitting us
you,
up in
Will.
the super chat with the $10. Thank you. Appreciate that. Matt, Dalcha Lungiambula, Marc-Andre Barriault. I switched the pick over to the Quebecer. I think that the longevity in the fight, that's what I like in this one. I like Barriault with the activity. You talk about pitter-patter. He can stand behind that jab. He can work some of his own takedowns. I think that's going to be good for him. I've got Barriault, but at the start of the week, I had Lungiambula because of that early blitz. And Barriault can kind of crumble under the pressure at certain points in the first round. So we'll see how it works out. But yeah, I've got Barriault here.
But not really. Like, he doesn't really crumble under the pressure all that often. I would say he's the much more...
How many wins does he have in the UFC and how many losses does he have?
It's normally because other guys can just implement his style better than he can or just outlast him. But that's the thing. If you can outlast Marc-Andre Barriault, then you can beat him. Dalcha Lungiambula can't outlast him. That's the issue. He does have very poor cardio himself. And let's say he does drop Barriault, he could very well just kind of blow his load early, waste all of his cardio, and then just be nothing left for those last 2 rounds. So I do like Barriault.
Yeah. Let's see what Dewey Cooper brings into effect for this fight. You know, the sleeves are going to be up. He's going to be talking with a deep voice. And it didn't work for Kevin Holland last week, but it did for Dalcha in his last fight. Yeah, Kevin Lee. It worked for Dalcha. That was his first camp with Black Cobra striking systems and Extreme Couture. Matt, our next fight, Jourdain taking on a great fighter who's made it 3 times in the UFC, and Juicy J, Julian Erosa. I like Jourdain. LTJ Money hitting us up in the super chat. Appreciate the late super chats. Keep them coming. That means a lot to us, Matt. I like Jourdain here.
So, just short story. I was listening to Fight Nation, the Sirius XM radio station, and before the Luke Thomas show, or formerly known as Luke Thomas show, came on, there's a show called Busted Open, and it's about professional wrestlers, and it's hilarious because they take it far too seriously. Now, if you like professional wrestling, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but there was one guy on there, and he called in. He's what you call a troll, and he said, hey, how can Ric Flair be that good? If he's the 16-time world champion, that means he lost it 15 times. It's kind of the case with Julian Erosa. If you're a 3-time UFC fighter, that means you've been cut twice, and there's probably good reason for that. I think Jourdain is going to be able to at least not be a 3-time UFC fighter. I do think he'll have some level of staying power. I do like Jourdain quite a bit in this fight, but oh my god, that guy lost his mind.
16 times. Let's go for 17, Matt. You've got a great fighter in Jack Shore. He's taking on Liudvik, Sholinian. I love the matchup. You know Ukraine's going to be into this one, and Armenia for their guy, Sholinian. Unfortunately, I've got Jack Shore. He was training for Said Nurmagomedov. He was training for a couple of different fighters. Now he gets Sholinian. Style for style, that's what makes this one such a great matchup, because they do go together quite well. Different forms of grappling nonetheless, but yeah, I've got Shore here. I know you do too.
Yeah, I think Jack Shore is closer to the top 15 than he is outside of it in this division. I really do think it's just onwards and upwards for him after this fight, so I like Jack Shore a lot.
All right, Matt, next fight, Molly McCann, Yeon Kim. Least confident pick on the card, Molly McCann. If Yeon Kim wins, light us up, but you're a dink.
Molly McCann via wrestling? Yeah. I think Molly McCann's going to win this fight, but don't put any money on it at all.
Yeah, it's a stupid one. Luigi Vendramini, Paddy Pimblett. I like Vendramini with the Muay Thai. I like him with his own grappling, and from what I've seen, both these guys are back masters, and that's what makes this fight so much fun. But yeah, I've got the Brazilian Italian stallion.
I think Paddy Pimblett's going to win via guillotine. I don't know why I have that weird feeling, but I do see Vendramini leaving his neck open on a takedown attempt, and I very well can see Paddy Pimblett taking advantage of that. That's not the official pick, but I do like Paddy Pimblett in this one. I do think he's the superior grappler, although this fight should be phenomenal.
The drunk investor over there in the super chat making the Conor McGregor references. Poor Jolie Poirier. Matt, our next fight, Modestas Bukauskas taking on Khalil Roundtree. This is another one. You talk about uncertainties. Modestas Bukauskas hasn't looked great in the UFC. I mean, he beat Andreas Michailidis, who's got the toughest fight of his life coming up. Alex Pereira is going to light that stuff up. Now, did he fight last night or tonight?
He fights tonight.
Yeah, that's stupid for them to just be like, hey, he's going to fight, and here's the date. But for Bukauskas, he hasn't looked amazing. I thought he beat Olashechuk, but whatever. Khalil Roundtree, could he knock him out? Maybe. People asking about the parlay. It's been on ice for a couple weeks. It's going to be on ice until the Span-Smith card. That's when it's coming back. I'm telling you that for certain. There's 15 friggin' fights booked for that one, so that's when it's coming back. But, yeah, in this one, I'm going to go with Bukauskas with his striking acumen. but Roundtree's live for a knockout.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that breakdown. I like Bukauskas, but Khalil could definitely get the finish.
All right, Matt. Our next fight, Zavada and Morono. I've got Morono ever so slightly.
I think Morono has the more staying power out of the two, but this should be a phenomenal fight.
Yikes. Aspinall taking on Spivak. We're both on Tom Aspinall here. I really do like Tom Aspinall.
I genuinely think this is a mismatch. Like, I think Aspinall finishes him, and I think he does quite easily.
Potensing, 300 likes, extreme burning, you know what? It's not going to happen, Potens. There's just not enough support out there. It won't happen. Matt, our main event of the evening, Derek Brunson taking on Darren Till. What a great fight. What a good comeback fight for Darren Till. He has all the opportunity in the world. What are we saying here?
I think Darren Till's going to knock him out via one of those, like, huff and puff elbows. Like the boom. Because that's what Darren Till does. He huffs and puffs, and then he throws his strikes. I think he's a much more accurate striker. And the thing is, Darren Till's super hard to hit. I don't think Brunson's going to have much success on the feet at all throughout this fight. So if he does win, it's going to have to come via his wrestling. And I don't think he's going to have enough success with his wrestling to win a 25-minute fight against Darren Till. So I'll stick with the Darren Till pick. But I think this is going to be a really, really good main event.
I like Brunson in this one with the wrestling. And it could be one of those sneaky go for a level change, overhand, and ooh boy, there you go. But Matt, yeah, I absolutely do love this one. I've got Brunson, you've got Till. We're differing on some of the picks, but that's what makes it a great card too. You know that the matchmaking's that good. If we're having a tough time on some of these 50-50 fights, I absolutely think it should be a great one. And listen, if you haven't had enough of Fight Night picks, we're going to have some neat content coming out next week. Obviously, there's no UFC on the weekend. And if you can't get enough of us, somebody mentioned it over there in the comments section. We opened a box of Hybrid H2 Panini Select. We also opened some CFL cards. Going back to the old Canadian roots, you can find us at 15-Minute Card Breaks. It's down below in the description, but just type in at 15-Minute Card Breaks, Instagram, TikTok. There's some different stuff over there too, so check that out. I'm really looking forward to the card coming up. It should be a great one. And yeah, I mean, you got anything for next week?
Have a great week, guys. There's no fights, but go out there and get it.
All right, so enjoy it. Appreciate everybody over there in the comments section that hit us up with a super chat, that hit us up with a like. You mean a lot to us. We'll see you around next week. As we always say, with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig
and Matt.